A very good morning to everyone. I, Sajal Mishra, student of DME Media School, welcome you all to Vibrant India series, episode 62. I also welcome all the viewers who are watching us live on Facebook. Vibrant India series is an initiative of DME Media School for celebrating 75 years of India's independence. This series will be a year-long exercise. As part of this series, we invite inspiring personalities for online talk interview, and interaction with our students. The invited personalities for this series are from all walks of life and all parts of the country. And today, our special guest is Amrita Chowdhury, renowned author and co founder and CEO of Kaya. I would like to take a moment and introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education to our viewers. DME is an A grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, New Delhi, and approved by Bar Council of India. The institute offers BBA, BALLB, and BBLLB and BJNC programs. DME believes in imparting world class education to its students while training them to develop and enhance their skills. This education and training enables them in taking up challenges of the industry and creating a space for themselves with their competence and vigor. TME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. Major flagship events and initiatives of the school include BJ Varghese Lecture Series, Peer-to-Peer FTP, International Film Festival SIFI, International Conference ICANN, Ritika Convention of Media Students, and VIS Vibrant India series. It is our privilege to introduce you to the personality of episode 62 of VIS, Miss Amrita Chowdhury. Amrita Chowdhury is the author of best-selling books Faking It, an art crime thriller, and Breach, a cyber crime thriller, and contributing author to Chicken Soup for our ITN score. She has been the CEO of brand strategy and design firm and country head South Asia for a multinational publishing house. She hosts an online talk show platform Winning Minds in partnership with Women Inspiring Network to bring out stories of women achievers in literary, visual, communication, and performing art. She is passionate about content, spoken, written, and visual. She has written two books of fiction and is a frequent commentator on business, technology, and marketing issues in mainstream media, magazines, and electronic platforms. She has authored 12 technical papers in referred international journals. She has been featured and interviewed for leading magazines, newspaper, and other media. She has co-authored white paper on e-governance, smart cities, design thinking for NITI, CII, METY, and DOT. She has led brand for Agra Smart City, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, DMIS Yorick, and multiple brands. Miss Amrita is co-founder and CEO of Gaia, an information and analytics SaaS company providing deep learning and solutions and digital transformation advisories for cities, government, and enterprises. She has over 25 years of experience in technology, strategies, consulting, and business across USA, Australia, and India. She serves as an independent non-executive director on the public listed boards of Simons Marshall, Nesco, and Mahindra Lifespace Developers. She serves as an independent director on the boards of Mahindra World City Jaipur, Mahindra Industrial Park Chennai, and Mahindra Homes. She holds 7 US patents for semiconductor manufacturing. She is a BTech from IIT Kanpur, MS from USC Berkeley, and MBA from Carnegie Mellon Tepper Business School. Now, I would like to request technical team to show some glimpses from her life. you, ma'am, for joining us today. It is indeed an honor to host you. I now request Dr. Susmita Bala, Head DME Media School, to welcome the guest.
Thank you, Sajal. Welcome everybody to episode 62 of Vibrant India series. We launched this digital program in 2021 on August 9 on the anniversary of Quit India movement. And we presented episode 50 of this program this year on August 15, when India celebrated 76th Independence Day. Vibrant India series is an initiative of DME Media School, Delhi Metropolitan Education. It is an online series to get inspiration from distinguished personalities. This program has been conceptualized and created by Professor Ambrish Saxena. Vibrant India series is a tribute to all those people who have made supreme sacrifices for the independence of our motherland. This program is a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, a celebration on India completing 75 years of independence. Let us have a look at the eminent personalities who have graced the VIS during the last 1 year. 8 personalities from the Defense Forces have participated in VIS till date. These personalities belong to Indian Army, Air Force and BSF. These include Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, Dr. P.K. Saxena, Professor R.K. Dargan, Captain Dharmveer Singh, Group Captain Ashok K. Chordia, and Mr. Virendra Kumar Gaur from BSF. This list includes a woman as well, Squadron Leader Prerna Chaturvedi. 8 personalities from the education sector comprising education planning, teaching and research have participated in VIS. From the media and journalism, 5 personalities from the journalism, broadcasting and entertainment sectors have joined the VIS. 2 senior journalists raised this program, broadcasting industry and from commentator. Mr. Sunil Tandon as an actor, news presenter, participated in VIS. From the social sector, 9 personalities, including 8 women, have participated in VIS. These include Dr. Monisha Bahel, Dr. Mridula Tandon, Dr. Mridula Seth, Ms. Tripti S. Shingal, Ms. Vibhala Khera, Ms. Bhavrin Kandhari, Dr. Meenu Walia, Ms. Meenakshi Gupta, and Padma Shri Jitendra Singh Shanti, the founder of Bhagat Singh Sevadal, participated in VIS. 7 personalities belong to art, theatre and literature participated in VIS. 2 personalities from the field of law and human rights have graced the VIS sessions. 3 police officers have also participated in VIS, Mr. Amod Kant, Mr. Vibhuti Narayan Rai, Mr. Rajendra Singh. 3 senior IS officers have also graced the VIS. These include Mr. Ashok Pradhan, Mr. Bimal Julka, Mr. D.J. Narayan, Professor Veena Sikri, and latest in this category, Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, a retired bureaucrat and former director of Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, Mussoorie, participated in VIS. 18 women have participated in 61 episodes of VIS. I have already mentioned about 8 women working in health, human rights, theatre, education, and diplomacy. I also want to mention of Ms. Indrani Singh, Ms. Pallavi Fauzdar, Ms. Sanchi Soni, Ms. Saloni Sacheti, Ms. Vandana Mahajan. From the other field, Mr. S.P. Rawal, Ms. Augustine Valet, Sufi Sayyid Azmal Nizami, Mr. Balindu Sharma Dadichi, Mr. Satish Saxena, Mr. Ganesh Falke participated in VIS. So, today in episode 62, We have with us a distinguished personality, Amrita Chowdhury, a celebrated author, entrepreneur, and innovator. Welcome, Amrita ji, in episode 62 of Vibrant India series. Welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for listing out the galaxy of experts we have hosted till now in VIS. I now request Dr. Amrit Saxena, Dean DME Media School, and originator and ideator of VIS, to take the program forward.
Thank you, Sajal. So, as the stage has already been set for this episode 62 of Vibrant India series, and we are really fortunate that the task that we assigned to ourselves in the year 2021, that we will be doing this series on India completing 75 years of independence. And this whole program, as it was conceived with a little bit different approach, we decided to invite distinguished people, but certainly we were not going by the very conventional definition of celebrity and all. We were always looking for the people who are genuinely working on the ground and who are contributing towards the development of the society. So a lot of such people have obliged us already, as Dr. Susmita Bala narrated the complete journey of VIS for the last more than a year. Obviously, it is taking for us too long. We were planning to complete it in 1 year's time, which we couldn't, because approaching the right kind of people and getting their time is really a task. But then the journey goes on, and since this is episode 62, so very soon we hope that we will be completing 75 episodes of this program. And as the guest for today has already been introduced, Amrita Chaudhary ji, who has so many distinctions to credit. She is an author, and then she is working in the mainstream media. She is also doing the service to the society, and on the academic front also, she has such an distinguished career to credit. So we are really lucky. So I welcome you, Amrita ji, to this program. And as the whole format of this program is, after this introductory segment, which has just finished, in this second segment, I'll request you to narrate your life journey in a manner that there are points of inspiration for the younger lot. We are an educational institution, and this particular program is being designed and is being produced by the media school. So all the students who are there in this session are the students of journalism and mass communication. So they need a lot of guidance and motivation. Though, I mean, in a way, we all need some kind of motivation every day, and we get, such motivation, inspiration from each other. But then anybody who has traveled a long way and who has done something distinct, so obviously that person has that kind of authority that such things could be transmitted to the younger generation. So I will request you that you can narrate your own experience, some anecdotes if you want to, and also the problems and the challenges that you would have faced in your long journey. And thereafter, I will be putting up certain questions wherein I will request you to elaborate on certain things which you would have spoken. And then the floor will be open in the last segment to the students and also to the teachers as well. So if they wish, they can also ask certain questions to you. So that is all about the program. Now, without delaying it further, I will request you, Amrita ji, to please take the program forward from here and narrate us your life journey.
Uh, Thank you so much, Ambrish ji, and huge thanks to DME for inviting me for this Vibrant India series. I think just the name itself is quite inspirational. India is very vibrant at this moment. The time for our country is now, and hence, very delighted to be a part of this series and to be here today. So I think the reason why I'm here is probably in my author's hat. And, storytelling to some extent is a part and parcel of everything that we do, right? And we write stories as authors, but also in every walk of life, there is storytelling. So as a business person, I'm constantly telling a story, right? I'm telling a story of my company, or I'm telling a story on behalf of the clients, for whom we work. A lot of them are the government and government of India at different levels, from the central ministries to the states or the cities. So we are telling their stories. As an engineer and as somebody who's working in tech, again, tech has its own story to tell, right? What is technology solving? How is it solving? Can you communicate it to everybody? Can you communicate the benefits? So ultimately, all of life, whether we are in any field, is about storytelling. And I was, delighted to hear that you had guests from so many different streams and segments. You talked about people from the defense forces, you talked about people from the IS and the civil services, from education, from the social sector. And in each and every one of these, when you're in defense, you have to take your team, your group with you. And it's a lot about storytelling. It is a lot about vision setting. It's a lot about belief in the larger purpose, in the larger goal, and in each other, right? So I'll begin with my story, but I think I want to connect that back with this idea that storytelling is an inherent part of whatever we do, whichever sector we are in. And as young students who are in this field of media and communications, that is going to be your medium, your tool to tell stories. So take it on with full challenge and full knowledge of the impact that it can have in whichever company you go, whichever field you go, whatever you choose to pursue. Right. So, my story to some extent is very similar to that of many people of my generation and my decade. I grew up in a small town. I come from a family of doctors. At that time, the expectation was that if you were bright enough, you would do either medicine or engineering. Despite coming from a family of doctors, I actually could not stand the sight of blood when I was young. So I knew that medicine was probably not the choice for me. I might not be able to cope up with it. So I said, okay, engineering it is. Today kids know what they want to do at a much younger age. There is a lot more pressure. I don't think we knew till high school, in the middle of high school, what we wanted to do. So come 10th, you scramble and you figure out okay, this is what I want to do. I want to get into IIT. And then you spend engineering, and you spend a couple of years of your life after that preparing and getting through. So, but before that, I think my life was filled with books and thoughts from around the world. My family, including my grandfather, my mother, they were all really huge readers. My mother was a poet and an author, a textbook writer in her own right. She wrote books on psychology, textbooks on psychology, and she wrote short stories. So I was always this world of books and ideas and thoughts was always surrounding me. It always attracted me, and that was always a huge part of my life going forward. But there was always that push and impetus to follow the regular stream. Hence, I went into engineering. Even while I was doing engineering, there was that, I think creativity is a bug. It's something that's inside you and it keeps propelling you to do some things. So I kept at it on the side, while I was at IIT, small bits of writing. When I went overseas immediately after graduation. So at Berkeley, I ended up, while studying engineering, I went and attended several a few courses in the School of Journalism, which taught me actually a lot about storytelling. That was my first introduction to the world of, the world of stories, the world of ideas, a formal introduction. So it was fantastic. Then, again, worked for a couple of years. And at that point of time, I had been married, I had my first child, and I said, okay, I'm on my maternity leave. And if not now, then when? So that's when I, enrolled myself in some of these weekend courses in creative writing. Went through, the nuts and bolts of how do you craft stories, how do you go through, taking an idea and expanding it into a 75,000, 100,000 word story, and so on. So I started writing. Unfortunately, I parked that book at that point of time. And a couple of years later, when I had my second child and I was on my second maternity leave, that's when I picked up, picked up my the first published book, which is Faking It, and I wrote that at that point of time, and it got published. It was a fantastic journey, just being able to write, completing a lifelong dream that I had was a huge impetus and motivation to myself. But the journey itself was actually fabulous. From there on, again, I had this parallel track, along the way. So after completing, my engineering, I worked in innovation and engineering for a couple of years in the US, went and did my MBA, again, a very parallel track that was going on in life. And then from there, I was working again in business on in management consulting with different firms and industries. And you realize that even in that stream, when you're doing management consulting and you're looking at large companies, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, and they are looking at new businesses and new avenues of growth, there is storytelling. Right? They're looking at, you're doing scenario analysis. I could steer my company in option A, option B, option C. How you present that, how you project, that 5-year, 10-year trajectory of that company with that particular idea, it's again about storytelling. So there was I've always approached work with that lens also, and that was going alongside. So from the US, I moved to Australia. Again, I was working in the consulting field, but I was writing on the side. And when I came back to India, that's when my first book got published. And again, there was work happening on the side. So I was working with Harvard Business School initially, looking at their education portfolio for India. And then, I chose to blend what I'm passionate about, which is creativity and writing, with work. So I got the opportunity to be the country head of a publishing house, a multinational Canadian publishing house. And I led their India business for a couple of years. And as they merged into a larger global entity, I exited that role and I joined a brand consulting firm, again, as their country head, as their CEO. And that gave me a different viewpoint. So, while my medium of creativity has always been the written word, today we live in an increasingly visual world. So to be able to be a part of that, though I was heading the business, but the business was in the business of providing creative solutions to enterprises and to government. So it gave me a viewpoint into how the articulation of brands, the articulation of stories works from the visual and communication mediums. And then I came back into a couple of years later into my company, which is a tech company again, and in the field of providing both digital transformation advisory to smart cities and to government and large enterprises, but also implementing solutions that blend your regular ICT applications along with artificial intelligence and machine learning and big data and visualization and now blockchain. So all of that, like, blending into solutions for either platforms that we have created that we take to multiple clients, or like, unique platforms and solutions that we build for different clients. So as an example, I mean, right now we are working with Startup India, and they have their national mentorship platform that is in the processes of being launched. So it's had 2 phases of launch already, and eventually it will it aims to become the largest mentorship platform in the world, given this fact that India is so pro entrepreneurship and so pro youth experimenting with innovation, experimenting with new ideas, and the ability to connect people from around the world who are willing to do to mentor people using this platform, which is a fully digital AI enabled platform, enables a whole lot of matchmaking and so on. So that's just one example of the kinds of things that we do. Many more are there, but in all of this, that storytelling happens, and along the way, let me not forget the story and the writing journey. So the first book, Faking It, was an art crime thriller. Again, there's a lot of thought that goes into how do you select what story to tell, how do you craft the story, and then how do you actually go through the process of writing, rewriting, editing, and so on. I'll be happy to take questions on that. A couple of years later, I wrote my second book. It actually came a lot from the heart. It was, I had been looking at a story that was set, again, a thriller, but in cybercrime. And my mother was actually at that point of time suffering from cancer, and she passed away. So, the story actually morphed into being cybercrime, but related to, stealing of intellectual property in the pharmaceutical space, something that is very real. It happens in real life. And the story ended up being about that. And then the third book, where I was a contributing author, was a bunch of friends and people that I know were coming out with a story of chicken soup for the IITian soul. You've heard of the chicken soup series, and the whole idea was to look at people from the IITs who have been interested in the creative fields and seeing if they could bring out stories. So that's where the third story went. And I'll pause over there now, but the key thought that I want to leave with each and every one of our young people who are listening today is that storytelling is a part of life. It's it's how you engage with people. It's how you inspire your teams. It's how you convince your clients or the people that you work with. Everything is about storytelling.
Thank you, Amritaji, for narrating us such an captivating and interesting story. I mean, the work that you have done, and that's so diverse, and you have been switching on from one pole to another. And then the other important thing which I could make out is how to maintain that kind of balance, wherein you are also pursuing your profession at the same time you are continuing with your creative instinct. But one thing comes to my mind instantly, that once that creative instinct was always there, and you were fascinated for writing and all, and you also did few courses to learn that skill, as you told us. But then why you finally decided to go for thriller? Because that has been the major element in all your books. So why exactly is that? You could have chosen a lot of other genres as well as writing is concerned. So why did you choose thriller only?
Yeah. So, I personally find writing thrillers, fairly complex. The first book, I actually don't like simple things. I like to make things complicated for myself and then to sort of solve it. So the first book that never got published, right, in my first maternity leave that I was talking about, it's not yet published. It was a book on a book of sonnets. So it was a whole story, a whole a novel written in 760 sonnets. And so when I was looking at the idea for my second book, I was looking at something that would be marketable. So I had a very fixed goal in mind that I need to write it, but I need to be also very quickly be able to publish it and market it. So when you're looking at it from that angle, it needs to be a unique story. And why a thriller? Because a thriller is very layered. And there are different ways of writing stories. There are stories in which you just dwell in the emotion. So the plot and the structure is probably not as important because it's about that emotion that you're evoking. And in stories that are what we call genre fiction, whether it be thriller or romance or adventure story, you're relying a lot more on the plot. You're relying on the story. You do go into the emotion, but it's not just the emotion that you're dwelling on. So that's I wanted to write a story in which there was, there was a larger aspect. I've worked in consulting for too long, so I know I have that ability of structuring things. And in a thriller, you need to leave clues and you need to unpick it, right? So it needs to be multi-threaded. It needs to be multi-stranded. It takes the reader along. It's fast-paced, but it can have, depending on the way you write it, a lot of depth. So if you read the books that I write and I like to write, it's a thriller, yes, but it's set in an industry, it's set in a context. If you know nothing about art, you will learn everything about Indian art reading this thriller. If you know nothing about pharmaceuticals and the world of intellectual property and high-tech research, you will learn a lot reading Breach.
Yeah.
So that's the idea, can you pack a lot more into it?
Yeah. And another thing which I would like to ask, since you have been into publishing for some time and then on business, handling the marketing side as well. And then latest, as you told us, you are associated with Startup India and all. So what exactly is your core area? I mean, if I ask you to decide which one you will put it on top priority, I mean, whether writing will remain or has remained as a hobby, not the mainstream, and this other things are the mainstream, or in some course of time, writing is to emerge as a mainstream and you will be focusing completely as an author, as a writer.
So Professor Ambrish, you've asked a very difficult question, and I'll tell you why. Because, as I was listening earlier to ma'am's a narration of all the people who came earlier on this platform, and you were talking about the segment or stream from which they came in, right? And I don't fit into one stream, I fit into a few different streams. Right. And that's always been a part of my life. And if you see today, today the world is saying that we are all multi-potential. We are not unipotential, we are multi-potential, right? And there are enough and more TED Talks about it. When we were growing up, there was this, you need to have your stream. When a few years ago, when I was, we were told that, you should have what is called a T-zone personality, a T personality, which means that you have a depth area, but you have multiple breadths, because breadth is that ability to be able to connect ideas from different streams, right? And regardless of let's say you're in politics. If you're in politics, you still need to connect ideas from finance, from economics to social and policy. You need to connect them together, right? If you're running a business, you still need to look at human resources. You need to look at the finance and economics of your company, but you need to have the vision and purpose, right? So you need to connect things. And today, and when you look at a lot of large companies, the rhetoric that is coming out is that we need to be M personalities. right? We need to have depth, two depths, not one. And then you need to have breadth that enables you to connect those ideas. So I think, like, even my path is becoming more mainstream now, where, like, the world is saying that multipotentiality is there, and we should recognize it in ourselves and say that, we are more than one facet of ourselves. We have these facets. Let's, explore them to the best that we can.
So, I mean, should I draw this conclusion from whatever you said just now, that ultimately you will be landing in politics?
No, no, not at all. But I will remain a storyteller in my life. And, as I said, even as a business person, there's a lot of storytelling that I do on a daily basis. Right. And when I'm working with my clients and I'm helping them build, technology platforms, through those technology platforms, we are helping them do a lot of storytelling for the ideas that they stand for. So it is about, that element will remain in my life.
Yeah, and since there are many students in this audience, obviously their interest varies. Somebody might be going for PR or advertising or journalism, but then there are a number of students who are into writing. I mean, whose forte is into writing. And let me tell you this also, we take out a fortnightly newsletter in our institute, wherein we have a fixed column on book review. So there are certain students who keep on writing books and they are writing reviews and all. Otherwise, also, whatever contents are there in our newsletter, all those contents are written by students themselves. So, given that fact in mind, let me ask you that if you want to give some, I mean, suggestions or some guidance or some tips as to what all should be kept in mind to grow as an impressive writer, if you can tell these students about that.
Sure. So first of all, to be a writer, you have to be a reader. You need to read a lot to see what is there. There are many different genres of writing, not just fiction, but within nonfiction, there are many ways in which different streams, different subjects are written. So you need to be able to read broadly. I think the second thing is practice, as they say, practice the art of writing. So whether it is through reviews, whether it is through blogs, whether it is through short pieces, practice writing. And I think the third piece, which is really exciting, is that writing, when we started, when I started writing was a solitary activity and it was only focused on the craft of writing. Today, writing is so much more. Writing is about spoken word, right? It's about spoken writing. It's about performance writing. It is about taking your writing and converting it into short snippets, which are there, which are Instagrammable, for example, or combining writing with other forms, right? So combining writing with the visual arts, with the let's say the other creative arts, and seeing how you can communicate the idea that you want to communicate. So today, I think the age-old thing of reading and practicing remains, but I think the avenue has opened a lot more for experimentation, and people are willing to see young people experiment, and there is a market for that. There is an audience for that, because there are so many platforms, and both content creation and content consumption is very democratized. So I take advantage of it.
Yeah, so you talked about the reading part, and we as teachers also keep on telling our students that they need to read a lot. If I mean anything, not only the writing, you link it to writing, anything they want to do in life, they have to read a lot, diverse things. Maybe, I mean, one can choose the readings of his or her interest. So if I ask you the same thing, what all you have been reading, and what all you can suggest the students to read?
Okay, so my reading habits like the rest of my life, are very diverse. So I like reading fiction. I actually used to like reading a lot more fiction and poetry. And then somewhere along the way, I started reading a lot more nonfiction as well. And the nonfiction that I read can be either about science or it can be about politics. And let me say again, I'm not getting into politics. That's not the idea, but I think it governs the world. It governs society. So being able to understand how countries or societies rise and fall, helps us also to say, how do we find our place in the world and so on. So I do read a lot about that. I read, I think I've read a fair bit of philosophy, and I think reading broadly, I think it's a part of diversifying your thought process as well, and getting lateral ideas from other places. So I think that's what I would suggest to young people. Read whatever you get your hands upon.
Now I'm keeping the floor open to the student to ask questions. So students, those who want to ask questions, please come on camera and ask your question.
I wanted to know, since you have authored 2 books so far and you've worked on a lot of publications as well, I'm sure you've faced a lot of speed breakers throughout the writing process. So I wanted to know what tips and tricks you may have for us writers, aspiring writers, that how to deal with these speed breakers, how to deal with writers' blocks, and any other issues that you may have faced throughout your writing process.
Absolutely. So there have been many speed breakers. I think the first one was I think my first book, which I said is written but not yet published. And in the writing of that book, it was actually quite ironic, because when I was in Australia when I was writing that, I found a mentor through one of these writing workshops, who was a very celebrated award-winning author. She took me under her wing, saying that, okay, I really like what you've done. And let me just guide you through the process. We met a few times. And then she said, she was so critical that I was actually unable to take it. Right. And I parked that book. I said, let me just go back to things that I understand, which is the world of business and strategy, and let me focus on that. And that perhaps is a huge lesson. Don't take to heart what other people say. Right. So anyway, so that story apart, a couple of years later, I said, okay, I don't have the emotional resilience to pick up that book. Let me write anew. Right. So I wrote anew. I didn't show it to anybody other than friends and family, who gave me good feedback. And then I sent it out to publishers. I sent it out to publishers both cold, because that was the time when Indian publishers were coming to fore, and a lot more books out of India were being accepted. And when I got accepted, I realized that writing is actually a creative process. It's a symbiotic relationship between your publisher and you. So I had written a book, which I had actually taken the time to go through a few drafts, and I thought I had perfected it. And I realized that they had a different idea. Even though it was the same book, I ended up rewriting a fair bit of it, because the editor had a viewpoint of how the story should move forward, and things that needed to be cut out, and it needed to be shortened, and all of that. So I had to go through that process. It's very hard. It's very tough. You need to know, dispassionate about your own writing, and say that I'm ready to chop off bits and I'm ready to rewrite. Right. And I have no ego. If it doesn't work for the story, I'm okay to rewrite. So I went through the process. Then comes the next big thing, right? Writer's block that you were talking about. And, it requires to some extent perseverance. And if you persevere, the writer's block eventually does go away. So you will have days when you're not writing, your writing is not up to your own standards. right? And you need to know that it is not up to your own standards, but you need to come up and show up at your writing table and your writing, like, laptop or computer or book, or, like, however you write the next day and the next day, and you will end up throwing away, like, a week or 10 days or like, even a month of work. But it's okay, because some kernel of that idea is important, and it will reshape itself in new ways in what you write. So you need to give yourself that time, and you need to persevere, and you need to come back, and you need to believe in yourself and not what others tell you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amrita ji. Let me tell you, Anisha is, I mean, I was telling you already that we have a column on book review. So Anisha is one who constantly has been doing the book reviews, in fact.
Fantastic.
And we would certainly like to write the review of your latest book in our next issue of our newsletter. So moving on, I will ask other students. Yeah, Shalu, please ask your question.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. My name is Shalu Bag, and I'm a first year student of BJMC of DME Media School, ma'am. So, ma'am, my question is, you have published book, served as a online chat show, and आपकी बहुत सारी CEO मतलब कंपनी भी है, आप CEO हैं मैम. तो मैम आप कैसे अपने टाइम मैनेजमेंट करते हैं, क्योंकि आई एम आस्किंग दिस क्वेश्चन स्पेशली बिकॉज टाइम मैनेजमेंट फॉर टुडेज जनरेशन इज मेजर मतलब बहुत डिफिकल्ट है मैम. आज के जनरेशन इतना हैंडल नहीं कर पाते.
नहीं, आज की जनरेशन भी हैंडल कर सकती है. आई थिंक आपको ये सोचना पड़ेगा कि लाइफ में मल्टीटास्किंग इज अ थिंग, यस, बट आप उसको सीरियल मल्टीटास्किंग करो. आप एक समय में 8 चीजें करोगे तो वो इम्पैक्ट नहीं आएगा. बट अगर आप एक महीने एक चीज पे फोकस कर लो, फिर आप दूसरे महीने दूसरी चीज पे फोकस कर लोगे, तो ऐसे आप सीरियल मल्टीटास्किंग करोगे तो बहुत कुछ हो जाता है. सो व्हेन आई वाज यंगर, आई हैड there was a spider chart that I used to draw for my own life, because life में बहुत सारी चीजें होती हैं, family है, kids हैं, I have kids, so बच्चों को देखना पड़ता है. You have your career, I have my creativity, you have your physical health, you have your mental health, you have your friendships, and you think कि life balanced honi chahiye. That's what everyone keeps telling you, life should be balanced. But what I have realized is that progress happens when life is slightly disbalanced. You focus on one thing for a few months, you get that through, then you focus on another thing. And if you have 8 or 10 things that you want to do in your life, you might be able to focus on 2 or 3 of them at any given point of time. And then sort of the wheel keeps revolving, the focus areas keep changing slightly. And over a period of time, aap dekhoge ki aapne cheezein kar li. Right? So that is one thing. And I think the other thing that, I think social media takes up a lot of our time. So if we do cut down on that, that will definitely give us back a little bit of time in our lives. So that's obviously a huge part of everyone's lives today. And we all can do from a little bit of cutting back.
मैम और एक क्वेश्चन है मैम, आप साइबर क्राइम के ऊपर थ्रिल्स लिखते हो, तो मैम आपको इसके ऊपर डेप्थ जाना होता है, तो मोस्ट ऑफ द गर्ल्स की वो डरते हैं ये सब करना, पर आपका एक्सपीरियंस क्या रहा मैम इसको करने के ऊपर?
हाँ, तो मुझे आपने सही बोला कि जब आप थ्रिलर लिख रहे हो और अगर आपको उसमें कॉन्टेक्स्ट सही रखना है तो आपको रिसर्च करनी पड़ेगी, राइट? तो जो मेरी पहली बुक थी वो आर्ट के ऊपर थी. मुझे आर्ट एनीवे बहुत पहले से पसंद था, बिकॉज एक क्रिएटिव बेंट था. सो इवन इन IIT हमें हर सेमेस्टर में एक सोशल साइंसेस का कोर्स करना पड़ता था. तो अलग अलग स्ट्रीम्स में आर्ट सेमेस्टर्स में सोशियोलॉजी, साइकोलॉजी, लॉजिक, ये सब किया. बट आई एंडेड अप डूइंग 3 कोर्सेज ऑन हिस्ट्री ऑफ आर्ट, हिस्ट्री ऑफ इंडियन आर्ट, हिस्ट्री ऑफ ग्लोबल आर्ट. तो एक उस समय से एक था आर्ट के बारे में क्यूरियोसिटी, तो एक लेटेंट नॉलेज थी. बट जब आप लिखने बैठते हो और आप देख रहे हो कि आपको वो कॉन्टेक्स्ट बनाना है, वो माहौल बनाना है, जो बुक वाज अबाउट अ फेक अमृता शेरगिल पेंटिंग। तो अमृता शेरगिल की लाइफ क्या रहेगी, उनके पेंटिंग्स क्या थे, कैसे फोर्जरी हो रही है अराउंड द वर्ल्ड, टेक्निक्स क्या है, सो वो रिसर्च करना बहुत जरूरी है। सेम विथ माय सेकंड बुक ब्रीच, बिकॉज इट वाज अबाउट साइबर क्राइम। तो आई मेट ethical hackers. I met
Yes, ma'am.
the police who were solving cyber crime. So I met a lot of people. I collected a lot of stories because वो आपके आपको जानना पड़ेगा, because कोई story जो है वो अगर reality में rooted नहीं है तो लोगों को बहुत जल्दी पता चल जाता है. It's similarly about it was about cyber crime, but it was set in uh, pharmaceutical इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी, राइट. तो फार्मास्यूटिकल रिसर्च कैसे होती है, राइट, उसमें वो प्रॉपर्टी को प्रोटेक्ट कैसे करते हैं, कैसे कहाँ से हो सकता है अराउंड द वर्ल्ड, कौन से कंट्रीज में इस तरह की पायरेसी हो रही है, कैसे कर रहे हैं वो लोग. तो बहुत तरह का रिसर्च करना पड़ता है एंड उसको कैटेगराइज करके रखना पड़ता है. तो उससे डरना नहीं चाहिए, बिकॉज वो पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ राइटिंग है. अगर हम सोचें जो हमारी जो एवरीडे की एक्सपीरियंस है और उसी से हम कुछ लिखना चाह रहे हैं, तो हम लिख सकते हैं, बट उसमें वो डेप्थ नहीं आएगी. तो अगर आपको वो डेप्थ लानी है तो थोड़ा सा रिसर्च, थोड़ा सा स्ट्रगल उसमें करना पड़ेगा.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
It was a decent question and very well answered, because these are the intricate things, obviously, which any writer goes through. So any young people who are interested in writing need to understand this all. Now, any other student who is there to ask questions, so please ask. Yeah, Vinayak Chaturvedi.
Good morning, ma'am. Myself, Vinayak Chaturvedi, BGMC first year. My question to you is, which is your personal favorite character among the characters that you have written, and why is it your favorite?
I think, all characters are my favorite. I will tell you the villain that is my favorite. And I think, when you write thrillers, you have to write villains that you believe in. And I'll tell you, I think my first boss was really bad in California. So many years later, I made a character out of him, and he was a villain. And that's a story that always amuses me. जब हम बच्चे होते हैं और कोई हमें बहुत तंग करता है, तो वो बातें हमारे दिमाग में रह जाती हैं थोड़ी, और वो एक एक दूसरे तरह से आ जाती हैं पेपर पर या किसी और तरीके में. तो I think, yeah, that's one of my favorite characters.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So, is there any other student who will be asking question? Come
Yes,
fast.
sir.
Navya.
So, hello, ma'am. As many of them asked you about your novels, so my question is, ma'am, as you have written 2 novels, Taking It and Bleach, a cyber thriller, what were your inspiration for these, as both of them based on crime? Please.
Yeah, so I think my inspiration was to write a fun story which everyone could read, but they could also get a lot of information from the stories. So it had to be fun, but it had to be informative. So that was my goal as I was writing both of them. And that's how, the story had to be written in a way that it was moving fast. The characters people could identify with. It was you could root for the hero and the heroine, and say that, okay, they need to solve the problem that they are in. Writing a story is a lot about that. A story has an arc, right? And in that arc, you set up the story, there is a crisis that happens, and then the resolution that needs to happen, right? And the reader needs to say that I connect with this hero or the heroine, and I want them to go through this arc, and I want them to resolve the problem. So that writing needs to connect. So that was very important and a goal in when I was writing. But the other goal was also equally there, that I'm writing about real scenarios that do happen in the world, and hence it should be correct, it should be informative, it should have that depth, but it should be so lightly there that it doesn't overwhelm you with the information. But like, padte through the story, you get that information.
Yeah. So we move on
Thank you,
to
ma'am.
the end of the program. Okay, Akansha is there. Yeah, Akansha, ask your question.
Ma'am, I'm also interested in writing section. So can you say me how you have just how to sustain our passion and guide me, ma'am, what is the first step I should take?
I think the way to sustaining your passion is to say, like, I will keep doing it, and keep doing it in small bits. Jab samay mile, like, do it. I mean, today we all have phones, like, earlier I used to carry a small notebook, which was my ideas book. So agar dimag mein, like, ideas aate hain while you're commuting, while you're going somewhere else, you're doing something, ek chota idea aata hai, like, write it down. Today you have your notepads on your mobile phone. So use that whenever the idea comes, write it down, and then, make time for your own writing, whether it is every day for like half an hour, whether it is every week for every Saturday for 2 hours, create that time, create that routine, go ahead and do that. I think it's, if you're passionate about something, find
Yes,
the
ma'am,
time,
I'm passionate.
find the time for that passion.
Yeah.
Uh, So, okay, moving on. Himanshi, please ask your question.
Namaskar, my name is Himanshi, BAGMC first year student. First of all, thank you, sir, Bala ma'am, and you, ma'am, for such a great lecture. Amrita ma'am, I am really impressed by your contribution toward the business field, and that's why I thought you are the right person to ask this question. So my question is, ma'am, before starting any organization, there are so many questions rise in our mind. So my question is, according to you, what is the most important thing we should keep in our mind before starting any new organization?
So, there are what I call like the P's of starting an organization. So pehli cheez hai, there needs to be a purpose of why you're starting your company, right? You need to be passionate about the idea. You need to have people, because ultimately, it is your team of co-founders who will motivate you, and you will motivate them to stay the journey. And it is about perseverance, because starting a business is about a lot of hard knocks, right? Every day you're out there, you will win, you will lose a lot more, right? And it is about saying that I will sustain so that I continue to win, even though I will lose a lot, right? And that is part and parcel of building a company, but that is also part and parcel of any business, any sales, anything that you're doing in life that you try. Let's say, if you're out for a job search, you have to reach out to, let's say, 50 people. Out of that, 10 may actually only talk to you. 40 will not talk to you, right? That is a part and parcel of the process. If you're trying to sell and get a client, you will sell to 50 people, only 10 will actually give you time of the day. Of those 10, only 2 may convert into business, right? But you need to go through the process of asking those 50, because if you only ask 2, actually we will end up getting 0, because that will not. So that perseverance is very important. And that ability to keep smiling through all of that is what ultimately you learn after being an entrepreneur.
So I think let us move towards winding up the session. It was indeed a very interesting session, and it could generate interest among so many students. That's ultimately the success of any such session. And if Amrita ji, if you ask me, then obviously as a part of the audience, as a receiver of this session, I would say that not only the work that you have done, your entire life is inspirational to anybody who want to do something in life, because the passion has to be there, as you already said. I mean, certain things I have noted down, which the the expressions that you used while narrating everything, the diversification of the thought process, which is a unique expression. And then, I mean, many of us try to do so many things, but then balancing is difficult. But then you gave an entirely different approach that if you're always maintaining the balance, that they may not lead you to what you want to do. Certain kind of disbalance is also required in life. That's also important, and I'm also obliged to you for giving those tips to the students as to how they can emerge as a better writer if they want to remain in writing or making a career in writing and all. Obviously, because of the paucity of time, I wanted to ask you so many other things with regard to Skill India thing, your business consultancy and all, but then time did not permit for that. We are leaving that for some another session some other time. So thank you so much for sparing so much time and giving us so much valuable input and obliging us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ambrish, for inviting me. I had a fantastic time and really energizing to engage with young students. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects. Nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.